The grey Benno goes to Hitotsu. Hitotsu clings on and Hitotsu wins the Derby.
100 to go, a length and a half emissary. Gold Trip is going to win the Lexus Melbourne Cup, but it's going to be Duke De Sessa, Harry Coffey. This is your moment. A length and a half buckaroo.
Bella Nipotina wins the Everest from
I remember the team sat down a number of years ago and really wanted to make a conscious effort to acquire tried horses from Europe, mainly to compete over a mile and further in Australia. We saw other stables do it so well, and it was going to be hard to compete with them if we didn't. So look, we dipped our toe in the water a little bit with the horses in training sale many years ago. There was 3, but the success story out of that group was Floating Artist. And he wasn't ridiculously expensive in comparison to later horses we've purchased, but I think he was around 130,000 guineas. He ended up winning 3 races in a row and came 4th in the Melbourne Cup. So he was sort of the banner horse that we got a taste for it, and then it sort of escalated from there. And really from there, Ciaron put away a lot of time and effort to identify these horses and acquire them. We wanted to ramp it up, go higher rating horses in the stakes grades to come here for the top Group 1s over staying races, whether that be the Melbourne Cup or Weight for Age. One of the most difficult parts of acquiring the horses is the horses not being for sale. So you can identify these horses, but all the time they're not for sale. They're raced by dominant players in the industry in Europe and don't really have a desire to sell those top line horses. So in that time frame that we found a horse that was viable and was in the mould for Australia and we identified, Ciaron really bounced on it, and we're lucky we had the clients to back Ciaron to go in with it. But it ended up being very advantageous for the stable, and on the back of it we've seen Melbourne Cup, Cox Plate, Caulfield Cup, Sydney Cup winner, and most recently the Group 1 winner in Perth in the Northley Stakes. When looking at these horses, there's obviously a few miles on the clock and nothing vets out perfect. But it is very much a luxury having Ciaron as the trainer, having the facilities, having the beach, having Fingal. It makes it a lot easier, and I've got no doubt that's been a huge part of the success of these older horses that come to Australia from Europe. On the flip side of that, you know these horses have the ability, so the owners and Ciaron is happy to be patient. We like them to hit the ground running. It's great for owners and the trainers. Like Circle of Fire, I think he won his Group 1 at his 4th start after buying him about 6 months earlier. The really big results we've had as a stable, you look at Gold Trip, I think he won his first race after 2 years. And now that was a Melbourne Cup, but it took him 2 years to get there. Duke De Sessa the same, took him 2.5 years. He finally won a Caulfield Cup and he's now in his groove and he's acclimatized and he's adjusted to the Australian racing. So they don't always hit the ground running, but because you know they have the ability, we've got the facilities and Ciaron can sort of chop and change and they get here and they acclimatise, you hope you can, at the end, get the result that we desire. Buying horses in Europe really put the stable in a tried horse market frame of mind, and that made us also look at horses in New Zealand but locally in Australia around the corner. We started doing the form heavy in Australia and seeing opportunities and angles that we could acquire horses and maybe change the facility and get the best out of, which in hindsight we've had amazing success with when you look back. Hitotsu was one of the first purchases. He won 3 Group 1s. And then the other banner horse we identified to purchase in Australia as a tried horse was Bella Nipotina, and obviously that's been an amazing story, the amount of prize money, and the pinnacle of her success was later in her career to win the Everest. But you know, looking at her and the angle that we were thinking, we were more along the lines of changing the facility. We actually got her to Fingal. She built up there and really developed, and then later in life went to Bong Bong. So being able to utilise all these facilities with the tried horses is definitely a point of difference for Ciaron and how he rethinks and changes things up and gets the most out of horses. So it does make the team and my job easier working with a trainer like Ciaron and the facilities that we've got. It's a credit to Ciaron and the team when you reflect to have that mindset and to change the bloodstock portfolio 5-6 years ago and to have a strategy and to implement it, and then you reflect and look back and say, okay, well, you won a Melbourne Cup, a Caulfield Cup, a Cox Plate, 2 Derbies, a Sydney Cup and a Guineas. And when you reflect, you do get good job satisfaction out of what we've achieved. Both the team and Ciaron should be proud. But what really gets you going and gives you good satisfaction is seeing the owners in the mounting yard after they've won a big race. At the end of the day, they've supported Ciaron, they've supported the team, they've invested heavily in these horses. So for them to get a result in a big race just means the world to the team and Ciaron. And knowing the boss, one thing he's not going to do is slow down. He'll be in Europe again for his 2-week stint this year. We'll be trying to acquire these horses and go again. Look forward to it, can't wait, and hopefully what we've achieved is only the beginning.